She presents herself as the classy, sophisticated housewife of Orange County, but Heather Dubrow's calculated manipulation and weaponization of legal threats have destroyed friendships and gotten cast members fired. From threatening lawsuits to betraying Shannon's trust when she was most vulnerable, here's Heather's dark side nobody talks about. Heather Dubrow joined Real Housewives of Orange County in Season 7 as the fancy actress married to plastic surgeon Terry Dubrow. She came across as elegant, cultured, and a bit bougie with her champagne preferences and proper etiquette. She built a 21,000-square-foot mansion complete with a champagne doorbell and became known for her taglines about having it all. For years, viewers bought into Heather's image as the classy one who was above the fray. But behind that sophisticated facade lies someone who uses her wealth, legal connections, and social status as weapons against anyone who dares to challenge her. The first major sign of Heather's dark side came during her original run on RHOC when she clashed with Kelly Dodd. Kelly joined the show in Season 11 and immediately rubbed Heather the wrong way with her loud, unfiltered personality. At a sushi dinner, Kelly used the C word, which prompted Heather's now iconic phrase, "This is low-base bullshit." Heather was appalled by Kelly's behavior and made it clear she was teaching her daughters that you're known by the company you keep. It was really hard to be in a group where people were screaming obscenities at each other, but Heather didn't just express her disapproval, she weaponized it. After Season 11 wrapped, Heather left RHOC. For years, the narrative was that she quit because the show was going in a direction she didn't like. But according to multiple sources, including rumors shared by blogger Marcus Johnson in December 2024, Heather was actually fired after she gave Bravo an ultimatum. It was her or Kelly Dodd. Heather allegedly told executives that she wouldn't continue on the show if Kelly remained part of the cast. Think about the arrogance required to give a television network an ultimatum. Heather wasn't an irreplaceable housewife. She was bougie and provided aspirational content, but she wasn't carrying the show. Yet she felt entitled to demand that another cast member be removed simply because she didn't like Kelly's behavior. When Bravo called her bluff and chose not to fire Kelly, Heather was reportedly given a reduced role offer. She declined and left the show rather than accept a demotion. Fast forward to 2021, and Kelly was fired from RHOC amid controversy over her statements about COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter. When Bravo announced Heather would be returning for Season 16, it came in the same breath as the announcement that Kelly would no longer be part of the show. Fans immediately theorized that Heather gave the network another ultimatum during her negotiations, me or Kelly. When asked about this directly, Heather deflected, saying, "I love how people think I'm so powerful. Like, if I were that powerful, what could I really do with it?" But Heather's protests rang hollow. When she left the show, it was going in a different direction. When they called her to come back, it was very clearly defined what the trajectory of the show was going to be and where she would fit into that. Translation: Bravo agreed to her terms, which included Kelly being gone. Heather got exactly what she wanted while playing innocent about her role in Kelly's firing. The feud between Heather and Kelly didn't end with Kelly's firing. It escalated into a legal nightmare that showed Heather's willingness to use attorneys as weapons. In June 2021, Kelly got the COVID vaccine and documented it on Instagram, where she alleged she already had antibodies because she got COVID on New Year's. Then Kelly claimed Heather Dubrow's son gave it to us to her 811,000 followers. Whether this was a joke or a serious accusation, Kelly had publicly named Heather's son as the source of her COVID infection. Less than 1 month later, in July 2021, Kelly revealed that she received a legal threat from Heather's attorney. Kelly shared on her Instagram story that she got a letter from an attorney from the Dubrow family reminding her that she made a statement that might sound like truth, but was in fact a joke. Kelly offered what she called severe apologies, explaining that she did get COVID at a party on New Year's Eve, where Heather Dubrow's son and all his friends were there, and 24 people got COVID that night. But she clarified on the record that she and her husband Rick didn't know how they caught the virus and were very sorry for any trouble they caused the Dubrow family. The sarcasm in Kelly's apology was obvious. She was essentially forced to publicly retract her statement or face legal action. But even after Kelly apologized, Heather and Terry allegedly weren't satisfied. They didn't like the tone of her apology and continued pursuing the matter. This was the first cease and desist letter the Dubrows sent to Kelly, but it wouldn't be the last. In November 2021, Kelly received another legal threat from Heather after Kelly called her a pretentious bitch on her podcast and falsely alleged she got demoted from RHOC. Even though Heather herself admitted in Dave Quinn's book, Not All Diamonds and Rose, that she was offered a reduced role. Heather shared in the book, "I was sitting around waiting for them to call with my offer, and when they did, it was for a reduced role. I went back and sat down with them and said for me I either have to be all in or all out. That's how I left." So Kelly's claim that Heather was demoted wasn't false. It was literally what Heather admitted happened. Yet Heather's lawyer accused Kelly of being malicious and making false statements. The legal threat demanded Kelly stop disparaging the Dubrow family in public forums. Kelly responded by telling Heather on her podcast to go sue me, lawyer up, clean out my bank account. Let's see how that goes for you. The situation got even more petty. On November 10th, 2021, Kelly was out for a friend's birthday dinner when she spotted Heather and Terry at a nearby table. Kelly filmed them on Instagram and asked, "Should I ask these why they're suing me?" She went on to bash the Dubrows, saying Heather looked like the mom from Coraline and Terry looked like Gomer Pyle. She called them dumb and dumber and F-faces. Kelly mocked them for sitting at a table for 6 by themselves, saying if you're at a table for 6, you have 0 friends. Losers. While Kelly's behavior was trashy and inappropriate, what's notable is that Heather and Terry completely ignored her. They didn't engage. They just carried on with their dinner while Kelly filmed them from across the restaurant. This showed a calculated coldness. Heather wasn't going to give Kelly the reaction she wanted. Instead, she would handle Kelly through lawyers, not confrontation. Kelly also revealed that Dr. Terry Dubrow had threatened to sue her twice. Kelly tweeted that Terry threatened to sue her twice, so why all the hostility toward Nicole James over her past lawsuit? She was apparently referencing Terry's Yelp reviews, suggesting he'd botched procedures before. The pattern was clear. The Dubrows used legal threats as their primary weapon against anyone who criticized them publicly. But Heather's evil behavior isn't limited to Kelly Dodd. Her treatment of Shannon Beador during season 18 exposed Heather's willingness to betray a friend's trust for a storyline. Shannon and Heather had been through ups and downs over the years, but season 18 seemed like they were in a good place. Shannon had just gone through her devastating DUI arrest and breakup with John Jansen. She was vulnerable and needed support from her friends. During a cast trip to Sonoma, Shannon confided in Heather about the night of her DUI. She showed Heather a disturbing photo of herself bloodied and injured after the crash. This was an incredibly private, vulnerable moment. Shannon trusted Heather with information she hadn't shared publicly. According to multiple cast members at the season 18 reunion, Shannon showed Heather this photo in confidence during what she thought was a private friend-to-friend conversation. But Heather was planning something calculated. Weeks after Shannon showed her the photo, the cast went on a trip to London for Shannon's 60th birthday celebration. Shannon had purchased expensive Burberry scarves for everyone as gifts when they touched down in London. Heather's response in a confessional was, "Take mine back. Put it toward the John Jansen Facelift Fund." The mean-spirited comment showed Heather's true feelings about Shannon's generosity. Then, at dinner in London, things exploded. Tamra Judge brought up Shannon's appearance on the Jeff Lewis podcast, where Shannon discussed her lawsuit with John Jansen. Tamra questioned why Shannon would talk about the lawsuit publicly when she claimed she couldn't discuss it with her friends. This gave Heather the opening she'd been waiting for. Heather brought up their Sonoma conversation and the disturbing photo Shannon had shown her. She recalled Shannon telling her she didn't know how John couldn't have heard the crash. Heather then accused Shannon of using her to get information on camera about whether John could have heard the crash. Shannon was devastated. She couldn't believe Heather would bring up a confidential conversation and the private photo on camera during what was supposed to be Shannon's birthday trip. Heather claimed Shannon had told her she didn't know how John couldn't have heard the crash in Sonoma. But then, Shannon told Jeff Lewis on the podcast that she could never know whether John heard it. Heather saw this as inconsistency and accused Shannon of lying. She expressed feeling used by Shannon, as if Shannon had shared the photo specifically to manipulate Heather into making statements on camera. The accusation was absurd and cruel. Shannon had shared something deeply personal during a vulnerable moment. For Heather to twist that into Shannon using her for a storyline showed Heather's inability to extend basic empathy to a friend in crisis. Shannon was in the middle of a lawsuit, dealing with DUI consequences, healing from injuries, and processing the end of a relationship. And Heather made it about herself and how she felt used. Heather joined forces with Tamra to gang up on Shannon at her own birthday dinner. Instead of pulling Shannon aside privately to address any concerns, Heather chose to confront Shannon in front of the entire group while cameras rolled. Shannon exploded, stormed out of dinner, and the first night of her London birthday trip was ruined. Fans immediately turned on Heather for her behavior. One viewer wrote on X, "Wow, Heather, that is nasty work." Shannon trusted Heather and showed her the picture, and look what she did. That is so low. Truly low-class behavior from such a prim and proper person. Another fan commented, "I don't understand why Heather Dubrow is accusing Shannon Beador of lying when she doesn't even have her story correct. Shannon never said it." Heather, stop lying. Multiple cast members were critical of Heather's words during the London trip. Even viewers who weren't Shannon fans thought Heather crossed a line. The consensus was that Heather should have supported Shannon on her birthday trip rather than attacking her. If Heather genuinely felt used, she should have addressed it privately, not created a public spectacle for television. Making matters worse, Heather later revealed that Shannon had reached out to her for favors multiple times even while they were feuding. On Nick Viall's podcast, The Viall Files, in October 2023, Heather claimed Shannon contacted her twice before Shannon's DUI asking for favors. One of the favors was the night after Shannon trashed Heather on Watch What Happens Live. Heather explained that if Shannon called saying "I need help" or "Can you please call me?" she picked up the phone because that's what she does with her friends. Heather used this information to paint Shannon as someone who only reached out when she needed something but didn't acknowledge their relationship issues. But think about what this reveals. Shannon was going through hell. She'd just gotten a DUI. Her relationship had ended. She was being sued. She was dealing with public scrutiny and legal troubles. And when she reached out to someone she considered a friend for help, Heather answered, but kept score. Heather noted every time Shannon asked for a favor while they were feuding, saving it up to use against Shannon later. That's not friendship. That's keeping receipts to weaponize later. A real friend helps without keeping track. A real friend doesn't later go on podcasts and television to publicly shame someone for asking for help during their darkest moment. Heather's treatment of Shannon showed someone more concerned with being right and maintaining her image than actually being there for a friend in need. Heather's behavior during season 18 wasn't an isolated incident. She has a pattern of turning on people when it's convenient for her. When she returned for season 16, her first cast event back was a party at her Newport Beach mansion. During that party, information came to light about Nicole James having sued Dr. Terry Dubrow decades ago for complications from a breast augmentation. The lawsuit had been dropped, but Gina Kirschenheiter received the information secondhand from Shannon off camera and brought it up at Heather's party. Heather completely lost it. She stormed off and declared on a mic, "I'm leaving the show right now." When asked if that was a real "I quit" moment or just hyperbolic, Heather confirmed, "Oh, I was out." She felt betrayed and blindsided. She thought it was surreal that this would happen at the top of the season, especially at the first party at her house. She expected maybe something petty, but never imagined this in a million years. But here's what's interesting. Heather took Nicole's side completely. She didn't believe Nicole had any ill intent in keeping the lawsuit under wraps. Nicole explained she was young and pressured by attorneys to sue Terry. She ultimately withdrew the suit, and nearly a decade passed before she and Heather became friends socially. Heather gave Nicole every benefit of the doubt, suggesting Nicole either thought they knew and didn't want to discuss it, or didn't want to bring it up. Heather compared it to meeting someone and forgetting their name, but it being too late to ask. So Heather completely understood why Nicole didn't mention the lawsuit. She was forgiving and gracious. But that same grace and understanding never extended to Shannon or Kelly or anyone else who crossed Heather. When it was Nicole, someone Heather liked, she made excuses and defended her. When it was Shannon showing her a vulnerable photo, Heather accused her of manipulation. The double standard was glaring. Heather's response to the Nicole revelation was also telling. Instead of walking away like she threatened, Heather stayed on the show specifically to expose the situation and the person she believed was trying to hurt her family. She realized she couldn't walk away without this person being exposed and this situation being exposed. So she stayed for revenge, essentially, to make sure whoever brought up the lawsuit faced consequences. This vindictive streak shows up repeatedly in Heather's behavior. She doesn't just defend herself. She goes on offense. She uses lawyers, threats, social positioning, and manipulation to destroy anyone who comes for her. She kept score with Shannon's favor requests. She gave ultimatums to get Kelly fired. She sent cease and desist letters for social media posts. She betrayed Shannon's trust on camera for a storyline. These aren't defensive moves. These are calculated attacks. Heather's treatment of Shannon extended beyond the London trip. During season 19, there was an incident where Gretchen Rossi arranged a self-defense class that began with a fake carjacking prank. Shannon and Jennifer Pedranti were in a car when a man approached asking for money, pretending to be a threat. Shannon later said she was terrified, that she couldn't sleep, and thought they were dead. But Heather called bullshit. She didn't believe Shannon's claims of being scared. On the RH after show, when Shannon explained how frightening it was, Heather interjected and said, "I call bullshit, you knew." Shannon walked Heather through her thought process during the incident. But Heather remained skeptical. Even though Heather wasn't in the car and couldn't know what Shannon experienced, she publicly dismissed Shannon's feelings. From ultimatums that got Kelly Dodd fired to weaponizing legal threats, betraying Shannon's vulnerable moment to dismissing her trauma, Heather Dubrow's sophisticated facade hides someone who destroys anyone who challenges her. Her calculated manipulation is the real low-base bullshit. What shocked you most? Comment below and subscribe for more.